All right. Hey, everyone. Matt from Soundrolling.com. And this is Ask Me Anything, my kind of 2 cents on all things sound related, I guess, in a bid to kind of get more content out there. There's lots of sound content, but not a lot of sound context in terms of people sharing specifics, such as in this scenario, I do this, in this scenario, I do this. There's lots of good general information out there, but just wanted to kind of get more down to the nitty gritty. So just posting this around at the moment, and we'll see if anyone comes up. This is, of course, live. There's a little delay, and you may be watching the re-recording if it doesn't say live anywhere. So we'll see, and we'll get in the questions in a second. Let me go over to where it is. There we go. Now we can actually see. Alrighty. So you will be able to ask comments and questions down the side if you're on the desktop app. I don't know how it works for mobile. Ask away here. And yeah, we'll just give it a bit of time and we'll see. But happy to just kind of share anything I'm doing and try and just see if you're doing it. Got like pepper in my throat. It's good to get all this kind of stuff out of the way early. Get my voice a little lower in the register as I burn away my vocal cords. Okay. So, yeah, don't be shy. Get in the comments about anything, and I'll try not to die, and I'll try and answer some questions. Very excited this week for being able to test out some cool, more timecode things. At the moment, I've got the Nano Locket, I've got the Ultrasync ones, I've got the Mozgear Qubit, I've still got my Tentacle, which I use a lot, which is very nice. And soon I'll be testing the Betso, the new Betso ones, which would be nice, as well as the timecode Slate, which looks very, very promising, to be honest. Let me dig up the specs for you guys. Betso timecode Slate. It's just coming over from the States, so let's see if it even comes up yet. I don't know. They must have it somewhere. Yeah, so it's the WTC S1. So I'll be trying out that Slate later on. Tomorrow I should be able to get it. And it looks really, really nice, basically. Weighs 840 grams. Takes 6 batteries. I guess that's for a long time. You get up to 100 hours of battery life from that, which is pretty good. All the usual time code rates, and also 2 times multiples of 23.976 to 60 FPS supported as well. Slow motion shoots, number of channels it can take up to is 5. Operating range is the most impressive, which is 500 meters. So anyway, stay tuned later in the week for all of that kind of good stuff. Yeah, hey Jerry, how's it going? Yes, we will definitely try and get this working later in the week for our sound chat as well, which would be cool. But I don't know if you have any questions for me to get the ball rolling. Feel free to kind of ask anything, and I'll just kind of share what I'm doing. Had a great meetup here in the UK yesterday at a pub, so there's quite a lot of people hanging around, which is pretty cool. So looking to basically simulate that kind of vibe, but obviously online with all you people around the world. And at the moment, yeah, just trying to crank out as much content as possible, and yeah, see what we can make happen. Try and compare a few more things as well. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else anyone would like me to test in regards to the Nano Locket or the Ultra Sync, because again, I still have them for quite a bit to test out. I think I'll charge them all and try and do a battery comparison, because even when the Tentacle first came out, the battery life was meant to be over 40 hours. So it's been pretty much a year to the day. So I'll be testing that out later as well. But yeah, just get in the comments, guys, and ask me about stuff, essentially. That's the whole theme of this. If you're new to this kind of channel, then I'm posting kind of daily stuff at the moment, which is pretty exciting, in relation to everything from, yeah, anything I can get my hands on, really. It's just the whole point of this is just to try and document as much as I can about what I'm doing or the gear that I'm using. And yeah, this will be kind of interesting to look back on in like 200 years. So Greg, always good to see you, Greg. Thanks for the question. How often do you use more than one boom? I try to a lot. Obviously, even with one boom operator, depending on the setup, I'm always favoring using two booms. The last time I got to do that, I was actually doing a lot of bag work. I don't have a cart set up yet. So I was actually, we were trying not to radio mic people. And so we were just double booming. So I would basically focus on all the off lines, because obviously then I can still look down at levels and stuff, and I don't have to worry too much about my frame line, and obviously with the bag and everything. So I try and use two booms a lot, even for setups like junkets and things like that. It's always good to just use booms. People, even talent, are really surprised when they don't have to be mic'd. They like that. Everyone just assumes you're always going to put a clip time mic on anyway. But just for speed, always using booms is easy. So I guess the answer is as often as I can. Even if it's just me in some scenarios, you can put like a plant boom off the side, try and capture some offlines. So yeah, it's all kind of about coverage, really. And that's the great thing about two booms, is that they cut really nicely together, as opposed to maybe a radio and a radio. So hopefully that answers your question, Greg. But yeah, do try and yeah, boom as often as I can. And even them doing a feature film, hopefully, which is still going ahead, because these things can always change, in January. And I'll be a mixer, and I'll have two boom ups. So that's me being in charge of everything as well. So with two booms, do you only use matching mics? I don't actually have double of any mic, really. I have kind of two similar shotguns. But what I would do generally, the two boom scenario is, I haven't had it so much where there's lots of cross shooting. It's usually single camera. So the offlines, for instance, it doesn't really matter that it has to match. But it depends. For instance, there can be a scenario, even if you're cross shooting, where one is slightly wider, one is slightly closer. And so maybe you want to use a shotgun in one and a close-up on the other, because if a person's framed like I am right now, but then someone in the background is trying to talk to them, then I might stick another boom a bit further back, giving just a bit of a better kind of perspective shift when I'm mixing in between the person in the foreground and the background. And then because the closer one has a wider capsule, you kind of get more of that, or you end up getting kind of a similar cut with the background noise as well. So hopefully that helps as well. But yes, I guess the ideal is that you would have similar coverage over two cameras, and you would be able to use the same mics for both. But yeah, it's another excuse to buy a lot of gear, definitely. Chris Ward, thank you for joining. What's your best method for hiding a tram? Now, the tram is interesting because it's I had them for a little bit when I was kind of first starting out. Kind of great little mics, but it's always funny that they have that kind of side address, as it's called, or front address, or basically it's not all about being above, it's about also being out as well. So hiding them is all about trying to either, you can do things like try and create your own little mount with a thing called Joe's sticky stuff, and you can actually just kind of wedge it in there. It's kind of like I want to say like a putty, kind of like a rubbery sticky substance, and you're able to squash it in, but leave a little air gap around where the actual microphone is. and that should also act as reducing kind of shirt noise as well. It's a little trickier depending on what the actual scenario is. Definitely, I'd probably recommend upgrading. I mean, trams are great, but I always found the side address. It just adds an extra kind of layer of complexity because you don't have those kind of neat little mounts like for the COS 11s or the DPAs. But maybe you can manufacture something. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But there's a video online just generally about how to hide. I did like an hour webinar with Simon from Ursa Straps. So there's full like just coverage of like the 3 main places to hide radio mics. So you can look that up on my channel. It should just be, if you type in the search like hiding radio mics Soundrolling, then that should be good. But yeah, the COS 11 is definitely easier to hide, and I like the top address. I think it's called address, is like which way it's facing. The top address mics, like even the DPA slims that are really nice and have this like poke through the buttonhole kind of mount. Still not sure if that's if it makes it easier to hide generally. So although I do love the DPA for like their super slim cables, as opposed to the COS 11s, which do feel pretty thick. So ST Audio, thank you very much for joining. For multicam formal sit-down interviews, do you use the AES output on your sound devices or analog outputs? If so, any advantage using AES other than fewer cables? To be honest, I've always still used analog. What I have is because I have a sound device of 688. Generally, what will happen is I'll use the 10-pin Hiroshi, and then what it'll have is just a breakout cable. So to me, it's I've probably just never used it because I've just never. I don't know. I've always done it through those kind of analog outputs. And often, like some cameras don't even have AES inputs unless it's like the Sony F55. So I've always just had that, and with the breakout cable, it just means that there's only one cable anyway, and you would generally pan, like if there's 2 cameras, you would pan the main talent on the left and the actor and the other person, the interviewer, whatever, on the right. So not something that I'm too familiar with. Only familiar with AES inputs, obviously with the Super CMIT, which I really like. But in terms of AES outputs, I've never needed to deliver more than 2 tracks, because obviously with the AES, I believe I can get up to 8 tracks going into a camera. So yeah, generally a breakaway cable. And Greg Palmer, go into camera wireless hops or breakaway cable. For a sit-down formal interview, breakaway cables are just so much easier. I just know it's reliable. I just know that if there's lots of people in the junket, these setups tend to be kind of junkets or interviews with lots of journalists and maybe even lots of other interviews going on in other rooms. And so anytime you can kind of limit the need for relying on wireless, I kind of prefer that, just because that seems a bit more easy. And yeah, the cable just works, so it's good. Tuba Stormer, thank you for joining. Do you ever use DPA concealers or any other pre-made concealer? I use the DPA concealers for my 4071s, and they're really good. It's really nice. It's kind of like how they should do. I think there's like a Manta Ray, which is kind of like a DPA concealer, but for a COS 11. But otherwise, for the COS 11s, I use RM 11s, and I really find that they're just so easy to use, nice and square. You can just stick them. They go straight in a tie, straight in a shirt, straight to the back of a t-shirt. So yeah, that's generally my mounting, and then I'm always using Rycot stickies with them as well. So SD Audio, I use Lectros 411, 400A, and SMQ. Do you have any experience with the LT transmitters? So the LT transmitters are the new tiny ones, I believe. Let me just check. It's like the SM. Is it the SM one? Yeah, the L series. Oh no, and we're so it's raining here, and all our washing is getting very wet. The LT series, I haven't had direct experience with it. I'm wondering about the build quality. They look a little kind of less rugged, although they definitely are smaller. But I'm just wondering about them. Although there's quite a few people around that have a lot of them, which are really happy. I think the thing as well that puts me off is just in the UK, our kind of band range goes from 606 to like 638 as like a normal set, a normal block. And the problem is that you have a block between. So you have, it's good that they cover 3 blocks, firstly, but the problem is just where that split happens. And so the difference between B1 and C1 in terms of buying a physical block is one goes up to 614 or it starts at 614. And so it basically means that I'm forced to cut the spectrum in half for the UK. So that's also why I haven't really looked into them that much, because it's a bit annoying that that kind of split straight down the middle is not kind of just one side or the other. But they've obviously just cut it in the middle because in the US, Lectrosonics blocks go up to 23, which is in the middle, which is 614, and then block 24 starts at around 614. So I see why they've done it for the US market, but I think for the UK market, like a bigger problem. But otherwise, yeah, smaller is always better. Wider band is always better. But just that where that split is for the LT transmitters for me is just a big letdown, to be honest. Although I could obviously use other frequency bands and stuff, but just the shared license just covers that kind of starting range. So that's just the one that I'm most comfortable with. So hopefully that kind of answers your question, or at least why I haven't used them yet. So what's your inventory of Lavs, different colors? How would you the sound of various Lavs favorites? Okay, so I have DPA's 40 71s, and they've got the high presence boost, which is great for hiding a little more. What they're not good for is clip-on. Anytime they're away from the body, because they have that high boost, it just thinnens people out. So maybe unless someone has like a super deep voice, I definitely wouldn't use them as clip-ons. And so that's why I've still kept the COS 11s, and I've had COS 11s for ages, even though I could have obviously jumped and gone for the 4060s as well. And all my DPAs are black, and I've got 2 white COS 11s and 2 black COS 11s, because black and white kind of seem like the best solution. Like even if I was to use beige, I think it's even tricky, like trying to blend it with any skin tone. So I haven't bothered with beige at all. So yeah, hopefully that helps with that as well. So the new Duo LT are great. Yeah, they're great. I just wish the spectrum was better, Jerry. That's the problem. Yeah, and you guys in the US have a massive band compared to us. We have literally like 606 to 614 is probably the technical, like, shared spectrum. You can use a few more different ones if you rent them out and things, but generally that's what they've tried to contain everyone to. So, Tuba Stormer. What kind of power do you use in your bag? MP1 batteries? Any recommends on good brands for MP1 cap and battery? I think the most known and most reliable, and what I've always never had problems with, is the what is it? Hawkwoods. Anything with a Hawkwoods is a really good brand of adapter for NP1s. And I'm still using the Swit NP1s. I've actually just ordered some of the new ones. They've changed their color, and now they're all black and sleek and cool looking. Probably keeping up with the Audio Root boys. And then otherwise, yeah, then I've gone through about 5, I think, at the moment. 3 of them are completely dead. And yeah, I've still got 2 left, so I bought another one just to make sure I have enough. So let's see, Alejandro, for electros, which block is considered to use for broadcast? Is it block 27 or 24? In the UK, it's technically the top of 23 or the bottom of 24. So that's why it's awkward, that kind of split in the middle. But I'm glad you guys kind of flagged that up. I might just make that a separate video because it's just really, yeah, it's a bit annoying. Film blog videos, just to say thanks. Enjoyed your last interview vid. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Doing daily videos for the sound chats, just breaking them up into individual questions, so it's easier for people to hopefully consume and also search. And then, yeah, there's like a video in the daytime or the evening, which is better. Julian, another very good channel. Everyone should check out Julian Krause. Just did a great video on the MixPre 3 headroom, or MixPre 6. I can't remember which one. It was definitely the MixPres though. So I'm still using the HD 26s. I moved to them probably this time last year. These are the DT 770s. I've just basically stolen them from my girlfriend, and I recommended these for her to listen to music. But yeah, I'm now starting to look for something a lot comfier, and these are quite comfy. But I think the thing for me is changing headphones is then just I have to sort of recalibrate my mind of understanding how my mixer sounds. Because I do thankfully a lot of work in post-production. I get pretty familiar with it. But changing headphones, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't change my kind of setup too much. So there's probably definitely better ones out there. I think the HD 26s are a definite improvement in comfort from the HD 25s. And I did a video about that as well. So feel free to search above HD 25 versus HD 26 Soundrolling, and it should come up. Tuberstorm follow-up about charging. Is it worth buying the expensive MP chargers to condition batteries versus the cheap charger that just plug right in? For me, it just made sense that if I was spending a couple of £100 on batteries just to get the charger as well, I think the thing is as well is that it's maybe trickier because they've gone up in price. The new SWIP batteries with the new charger, I think, is around 400 and something, whereas it used to be 300 and something, like 330 is a deal. So you could get two batteries and the, is it Hawkwood's charger or Hawkwood's cup versus the, or the Switz cup versus the 330. Yeah, it's 400 now. So an extra £100 like slightly puts me off, but maybe the battery's a bit of a better quality, better hard wearing, that kind of thing as well. So who knows? But yeah, sticking with the Switz for now. I've got the SL6, so my batteries just slot straight into the back as MP1 shapes, and so I'm just really used to the MP1s. Yeah. Tuberstorm, the HD 25s are fragile. Mine never seemed to break. Even the cable was fine, but that's why they definitely sorted that out more in the HD 26s. They had a little curl on the cable, and I've never had any problems with that in a year either. It was maybe just the actual fur lining that started to perish after a couple of years. So if anyone's just joining, you can of course get in the comments at the side. Kind of, this is just me adding my 2 cents onto everything, and then I can repurpose these as kind of separate videos. If you're just new to what I'm talking about all the time, it's everything about sound. So you can ask me anything from how I work, how I record, how I do anything. And I'm using this as kind of a documenting space for myself, but also I wish, like, imagine if Simon Hayes or someone had just been documenting his progression to the such high levels that he's at now. I'd like to think that I'd still go that way, but I'm definitely learning a few things. And yeah, it's fun to interact with people in our industry. I think there needs to be, I'm quite happy being a kind of lightning rod of doing things wrong or right, and figuring out through the swift feedback of the internet. So that's my kind of vibe. So how do you protect yourself from producers not getting paid, etc.? Well, Jerry, yeah, I know you've had some problems with this. I have in the past as well. For me, it eventually comes down to this thing in the UK called the small claims court. You can do this thing where basically they would have to go to court. If you hand in an invoice and it's ridiculously late, you pay a fee to the court, and they basically send out a letter saying if you don't pay within 14 days, then you have a court date given, and whatever they owe you, they have to add on the court fee as well. And I've had 100% success rate of doing that 3 times. So yeah, it's unfortunate because they've already burnt the relationship, so you kind of feel like, okay, well, there's nothing really to save. But otherwise, protecting yourself, if there's, for instance, a massive job and there's a big gear rental, maybe you try and get the gear rental up front. There's probably other ways around it, but at the end of the day, some people are just really shitty, and they're going to do whatever they can to not pay. So it's all about, I guess, spreading the risk in terms of working for lots of people. Anytime you're kind of relying on one person for your income, it's going to be very tricky because you're essentially not being freelance anymore. You're essentially just employed by them, because if they don't decide to pay you, then you're really absolutely stuffed. And that's unfortunately happened to me in the past, and still does. So probably over 6 years, it's happened like once every 2 years. So it's always something to be aware of. But thankfully, I've got my money back, as opposed to earlier on in my career with feature films and not knowing about how these things worked, and people with shell companies and just like, going completely out of their way to avoid paying. Sometimes it's just the price of doing business. I don't have them sign contracts. It's still valid if I do an invoice and if I'm physically there and I have rushes. If you're always worried when you're on set, you can hold rushes. Again, not necessarily the best thing to do for the relationship, but if you're really worried about it, sure you get those emails in, make sure you CC those producers. It's very hard for people to say that they haven't got an email these days, because you can, with certain software, like my invoicing software, it says that it's been delivered or it hasn't been delivered. And you can sub in, even if you sub in the director or other people, and even if you can just find out the accounts people first, like their email, then you email it both to the producer and both to the accounts person. Because sometimes producers just forget. That's also a possibility as well. Hold the rushes means just like keep the rushes, not give them over until you've been paid. I know that some people have done that on jobs that they thought was sketchy. That question of whether of when to kind of take that kind of relationship, I guess, to the next level of stress in terms of just making sure you get paid. Alejandro, what type of microphone are you using for this stream? I'm using the Rode Podcaster. It's a very good mic. It's massive, but it's kind of very durable, and it's super easy to use because I can just plug it in with a USB connection, and it just seems to work all the time. So very happy with it. I could do more complicated things with my Pro Tools interface and all this rubbish, but I just like something that I can just plug in that sounds a hell of a lot better than the internal microphone. So yes, what other questions do we have? Yes, a lot of bad. Oh yeah. So Greg, have you considered replacing the antenna on your G3 wireless or to get better range? Stock antenna is too flexible and wrong length for the frequency. Yeah, I've thought about it. Again, mine just seem to work. I'm only using them when I'm not using them in range critical scenarios. They generally tend to be kind of hops or things like that for cameras or just general monitors. So yeah, not really too fussed about them at the moment. Although some of them have bent beyond, kind of not beyond repair, but yeah, I would need to get some brand new ones to make them work as well. So let me see how much. I don't know how much time we're up to at the moment, but see for. Okay, so we've been pretty much half an hour. So I'll answer this last question from Justin, and then that'll be me for now. But I'll definitely be back soon. Are there similarities between location sound mixing and theatrical sound mixing, besides mixing like location mixing into recorder? and theatre into a live PA, do you do mix line by line with the script? Do I mix line by line with the script? Yeah, I guess the whole point of my mixes is probably exactly like theatre in terms of just if someone's speaking, you're trying to mix in between them and maybe using an ambience mic. I'm not sure if they use that in theatre too much. I assume they have like a stage mic or a general mic that's kind of filling in the gaps in between people changing. Um, so yeah, I'm assuming that there isn't that much difference other than things are a lot hardwired in terms of the technical aspects of actually miking the people is slightly different and you can get away with a lot more. Or it's like they're done in wigs or like people are blatantly allowed to see them because most of them are sitting miles away. I would have to say not really. I guess the other thing is that it's live. And so with coverage in film, you don't necessarily have to worry so much in, say, a wide shot if things aren't quite working out on the radio mics, whereas in theatre you probably would. But then this is why you have the different techniques to make sure it works. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Again, I don't really have that much experience with recording straight into theatres, but it's pretty much the same. Yeah, seems like the same concept. Like mixing is just mixing several sound sources, and so whether it's music, whether it's this, that, or the other, and the actual physical desks, maybe it has triggers, maybe it has. So yeah, I think in answer to your question, I guess the principle is the same. And I'll ask just another Justin Hayes, when editing dialogue, what are some of the problems which could necessitate ADR? Oh, as in, yeah, it's just really, really bad. So it's recorded at the wrong level. It's like distorted. Yeah, make something necessary as a result. Lots of things, to be honest. Anything can go wrong and completely stuff up your mix. So when dialogue editing, some of the problems are that it's too scratchy, that the person's level is way too different, that they're off mic, so they're suddenly like this, and then they come on and then in between. So this makes it really hard if you're trying to dialogue mix because they're off mic. But technically, I guess the short answer is lots of problems. If it's not recorded right, then if you can't find a wild track or a separate take of it, then you're going to have issues, unfortunately. Tuba Storm, how do you mic crowd audience members at events? I've been setting a dynamic omni on a light stand, but I don't find it works very well. Yeah, I would go with a cardioid. That's probably better. A cardioid away from any kind of live PAs and things like that is going to be the best. Dynamic is great for basically isolating everything else. So you'd have to drive that dynamic mic pretty hard to be able to pick up the background noise. But if you just lightly feed in a condenser microphone or even a shotgun, you're going to get a bit more kind of crowd or ambience feel. And again, try to set it up as high as you can. Will obviously give you the broadest range and keep you away from the music as well. What mic do I recommend for VO work? It depends. Ideally, I always use just my hypercardioids, but there are thousands of amazing mics that people use in music as well. But I just tend to use the microphones that I have. So you boom them for shows, yeah. It's because the applause was loud. Yeah, you can get things like they're called pads, and what they do is they cut the input level of the cardioid by -10. So it just means at any time you have quite a lot of dynamic range for if just random people are just milling around and you have that kind of chatter before a live event and you kind of want to feed that through, or they want to record that for, say, a DVD. So I'm going to cut things off there. Thank you very much to everyone for kind of joining me. Going to cut these into kind of a few different videos, hopefully, and hopefully answer some other questions for other people. So until then, stay tuned. Daily stuff coming all the time. And yeah, that's pretty much the vibe. And I'll definitely be on for one of these random hangouts soon. Starting a 6-week feature film from next week, actually. So, oh no, Mikey, well, you'll be able to go back through and watch. I've got also 440 videos, I think, on YouTube at the moment. So there's quite a few, and trying to add them all to my blog as well. So got 500 things over on the soundrolling.com/blog, and you should be able to find that out. And maybe I should have added like a cool little thing. Wait, let's see if I can add this like sweet overlay. Oh, look, it's backwards. Oh, there we go. Hey, Matt Price from soundrolling.com. There we go. Let's just end it like that. Why not? So thanks very much, guys. No worries at all. It's all for just my interest of documenting what I'm doing, and you guys can definitely tell me pretty swiftly if I'm doing anything wrong. But everything seems to be working out so far, and this will be fun to look back on in 50 years' time. And hopefully I'll have a better color sofa by then. So till next time, see you later.